ESPN1420.com. That's an old WWE theme song right there. For one, Jonathan Coachman, the coach, a Sports Center anchor, a ESPN studio host, and radio personality. Spent 9 years in the WWE as a commentator, interviewer, a brief stint as the Raw general manager as well, and occasional wrestler. But everybody down here in Lafayette kind of knows the coach right now for making these comments.
You have too. There's not very much there. So when they get a really good softball team, that inspiration and what they have behind them, how much do you think that helped this softball team?
All right, Coach. First of all, thanks for joining us. Two questions. One, how are you? And two, what were you thinking?
Well, first of all, I'm doing great. And second of all I ever do as a sports announcer, and if I was doing news or if I was doing coverage of Cajun festivals, okay. But everything I do is from a sports perspective, Scott. And when I say there's not a lot there, I mean there's no pro sports. There's not a lot of national sports. There's the university, and there's a few other minor things. And so what I was saying was that the people of Lafayette, who I've been there many, many times, so that's the thing. That was the thing about all of the backlash this week, is that a lot of the people were like, well, you've never been here. Well, A, it doesn't matter. And B, I have. And all I look at it from is from a sports perspective. And it's not New York City or it's not Los Angeles or Chicago. And that's why the women's softball team, that if they played in Chicago, probably wouldn't have the amount of support they do in Lafayette, which I think is fantastic. I think it's fantastic. And the fact that so many people took it as a negative, I apologize for that, because certainly there was no negativity involved. I was just amazed and applauded the atmosphere that the game had last weekend.
Now, so and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but essentially it sounds like you're saying, well, the reason they support the Cajun softball team here is because they're kind of bored sports fans. They're not other sports to follow.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you, like I live near New York City, and in New York City there are 2 NFL teams, there are 2 NBA teams, there are 3 hockey teams, and if you are a sports fan, then those are a lot of things to choose from. So in New York City, St. John's or Hofstra, they don't get the notoriety that locally that the women's softball team in Lafayette does locally. So that's a good thing. I'm not saying they're bored sports fans. I'm saying there's not a ton, Scott, to choose from as far as pro sports or even college sports in the direct area. That's all I was trying to say. And so that's why, if they played in New York or Chicago or L.A., they probably wouldn't have the amount of support they have in Lafayette, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
ESPN1420, ESPN1420.com. Jonathan Coachman, ESPN radio personality, Sports Center anchor, our guest right now here on the Sports Gap. Coach, there is a lot of diehard Saints fans here. We got a big Pelicans following. You grew up in Wichita, correct?
Just north of Wichita, yes.
Just north of Wichita. Now, were there a lot of Chiefs fans in the area?
In Kansas, it's very much like some other states where it's the closest thing. For us, I'm a huge Chiefs fan because that was the closest NFL team we had. It was still, it was 3 hours away, and I'm a huge Royals fan, which was 3 hours away from my hometown. So, where I come from, it was kind of the same boat. A lot of small colleges. Lafayette's a lot bigger than. I'm learning this, Scott. ULL is a lot bigger than the colleges I was around, or even the college I went to.
Well, and while we're on it, Jonathan Coachman, being a good sport, our guest right now, they prefer athletically just to be called UL. Now, I know that we could go through a long rant and conversation about why, but since everybody down here feels obligated to educate you on Twitter with rants and on shows, they like UL.
Well, okay, I'll go with UL. And what's been nice about this guy, in all honesty, because anybody that knows me and knows my history in wrestling or my history, if they listen to my radio show or watch me on TV, there's not a more fun guy to be around than me, if I do say so myself. And I don't like negativity. I don't like when I'm usually the first person to jump in front of a speeding negative bus, if you will. So certainly there's been a lot of people, though, on Twitter that understand what I was trying to allude to. And you know this, when you're doing something live, I mean, I don't have the ability to have taped programming.
Sure.
And would I have gone back and changed it? I doubt I would have, because it wouldn't even have crossed my mind that I was technically insulting anyone there in Lafayette. I certainly wasn't doing that. But when you don't have that net, sometimes things come across differently. And there's been a lot of people that have been like, hey, Coach, listen, why don't you just come down here?
Right.
We'll show you around. We'll give you some great food. We'll take you to the festivals, and we'll welcome you with open arms. So maybe I'll do that one day, even though I've been there many times, but I've never gone and, entrenched myself in the culture of Lafayette. So maybe I need to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of like the overall feedback down here. I think you, your wife, Amy, your 2 children, maybe just come down for a getaway when you're not working and really just enrich yourself in Cajun culture. I know if you're game, everybody here is going to welcome you guys with open arms.
Oh, and I appreciate that. And at the end of the day, being a Midwest guy myself, that's all to me life is all about. So, but also when you're at the national level, when you're at ESPN, it all starts right, wrong, or indifferent with pro sports, and then it's college sports, and then we have to deal with all levels of sports. So when we make comments, it's not from a UL perspective
Sure.
all the time. And so that's, I think, where all of this started. So I certainly hope people understand that what you have there and the ride that that softball team is on is special and is fun. And anytime you can go on a road trip, and unfortunately they lost yesterday, but the ride's been terrific, and I think they should be proud of that and not focus so much on a 3-second comment that an anchor from ESPN might have made.
That's what some of us over here at ESPN1420 have said. Enjoy the ride. Don't focus on the negativity and what national personalities were saying. And this is their 6th Women's College World Series. It was kind of an unexpected one, at least as far as their outlook at the beginning of the season. But it's been a lot of fun. The baseball team's ranked number 1 in the country. They're getting ready to host a regional tonight. Exciting times. But the one other thing I'll say is, even though there's not pro sports teams here, just like you growing up in Kansas, I mean, we generate more Saints interest than any other topic on these airwaves, and there might not be pro teams in the city, but that doesn't mean that the interest isn't there, because you'll find some of the biggest Saints fans in the world.
Absolutely, I would never say that. I was alluding to the atmosphere, and if you watch the entire hour, which I'm sure a lot of people didn't, and
no, they just saw that one clip, Coach. That's all they saw.
Of course. We talked about the atmosphere as they did on the broadcast for the entire afternoon, because the atmosphere was off the charts. And anytime you get a team the level of Arizona to come to your house, that's a big deal. And that's what we were trying to get across. But people, and I guarantee, Scott, and this has probably happened to you with your show and your time there, that somebody will hear what somebody else said and just jump on the bandwagon and start sending in you nasty stuff. And you're like, wait a second, did you even hear what I said? Were you even watching when I said it? And usually most of the time, the answer to that is no. They just like to jump on. And I'm all for defending your area, defending your city, defending your town. That's the American way, believe me. I have not been offended, nor have I gotten upset at anything anybody has said to me, because at the end of the day, we're all going to move on, and my life is just as good today as it was last Monday when this happened. And I like Lafayette as much today as I did last Monday. So it hasn't changed for me, and I think it's been fun for me, and hopefully a few people down there have had fun too.
Jonathan Coachman, our guest, ESPN1420, ESPN1420.com. Well, Coach, I hope the feedback was more of the, as you described earlier, come down here. We want to show you a good time. We want to show you the great food, the festival, all that it has to offer. I hope you got more of that than maybe a couple of trolls on Twitter that just wanted to go on there and call you names and stuff.
Well, and you're always going to get that regardless of what topic that you're talking about. And Twitter can be a great thing, and then Twitter can be one of those things. But I learned a long time ago when I did, almost 10 years in the world of pro wrestling, that there are going to be people that love you and people that hate you. And Colin Cowherd, who's one of the best talk show host in America. He taught me when I got here 6 years ago that he literally wants half the people to love him, half the people to hate him, and 100% of the people to listen to him. So at the end of the day, I guess the attention has been good. And hopefully my reaction to all of it has been professional and classy and fun, and that's all I can ask of myself and the people that are around me. So for that, I'm grateful, and it's been a lot of fun. And heck, you and I never probably would have got to talk on your show.
That's just it.
That's positive too.
That's just it. Jonathan Coachman, our guest. No, look, I respect you for coming on the show. We reached out to you, said, yeah, let's do it, and talking to the listeners and trying to get the word out there. It would have been very easy to just go on Twitter and say, see, you guys have nothing better to do. You're just calling me out, and there's nothing that would have been easy to do. That would have been the easy way out. And you're like, no, that's not what I meant. Let me go on. Let me talk about it. Let's have some fun. And speaking of Twitter, you can follow Jonathan at The Coach ESPN. That's at The Coach ESPN. Well, like you said, you and I probably would have never chatted like this. So now that I got you on the show, got a couple other questions for you. You get recognized more for your time in the WWE or for being on SportsCenter?
Well, it's funny because the first three years or so, I would probably say, probably till about 2011, it was 90-10. It wasn't even close because and when you're on a network or a show that's in 150 countries, you begin, your face becomes pretty well known. But then you also realize that when I stopped traveling abroad and just stayed here in the United States, that it started to be more and more SportsCenter. And as the level of shows that I've done has gone up, and when I started doing the 11 o'clock show, which is our number one show at ESPN a couple of nights a week, certainly it's probably now more 60-40 the other way. And I think there's a couple reasons for that, the level of shows, but also I've been gone for a little bit of time now, and wrestling fans have a tendency to either move on or they stop watching for a little while. So you have a lot of new fans that come through that may not even know that I spent, such a long time working for Vince and doing that. So, but now it's definitely more ESPN than it is WWE. But there's still a ton of fans out there, Scott, that will bring up something I did 6, 7, 8 years ago. That makes me feel good too, because I certainly gave it everything I had and did the best that I could. And I would hope that one day I can bring the two worlds together. I would love to do a little bit of both. Do I think it's ever going to happen? I don't know, but I certainly would love to try.
Jonathan Coachman teasing a possible return, which always goes good in the wrestling world, whether it's got legs or not, and I'm just having fun. I know you're just talking about your passion for World Wrestling Entertainment. How much do you miss it? How closely do you still follow it today? Because I know your schedule's pretty jam-packed up there in Bristol.
Well, see, with radio and TV, it's so hard. And I've also learned how to take care of myself better too. And in the old days, I would stay up. Even after I got the ESPN, I'd stay up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching. I'm a big TV buff. I love different shows. I love the trashy shows. I love the classy shows. And I like it all. Now I'll go to bed at 10 o'clock if I'm feeling tired. And, if I'm feeling fatigued, because I work a lot of weeks, 6 or 7 days a week. So I don't watch it very much, to be honest with you. It's just it's not that I'm not interested in it. It's just there's only so much you can consume in a day, and to do my job the best of my abilities at ESPN, there's a lot of extra work, a lot of extra hours that go into it that are never talked about. You never just throw out there because people don't want to hear about how hard I work. They want to see the results, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And I couldn't do the job that I do on TV or radio, or you couldn't either. Without putting in the preparation and putting in the time. And if you calculated the amount of time that you spend watching Saints or the Pelicans or whatever it is that you have to talk to on your show, you couldn't walk in and just do your show with no preparation. So that, to me, has taken over my life instead of watching 3 hours of Monday Night Raw.
Preaching to the choir as far as the work goes. No one wants to hear that I was here till, 1 a.m. last night and setting things up and creating these logs for postseason. Nobody wants to hear it. They just want to listen to the show and be entertained. And I know a lot of folks were anxious to hear this interview with you and how you would address your comments. And now that we got that out the way, I'm just having fun talking some business in sports with you. Well, you don't really have much time to watch it, but maybe next time Raw comes to Lafayette, you could come in, just for one show only, do a storyline, and come out to the ring. Say there's nothing to do in Lafayette. It would be kayfabe, of course, but what do you think about a potential storyline? Obviously, you wouldn't mean it, as you've explained. Maybe that's your one return to the WWE, one night only. Jonathan Coachman, Raw in Lafayette. What do you think? I'll be your manager.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I'm thinking out loud here. You have me really. Now my wheels are spinning because that would be something that is not only doable, but I think would be a lot of fun. I used to love coming to the Cajun Dome, and the one thing that drove me crazy, and I don't know if it's changed, is we could never get cell phone reception out at the Cajun Dome. It would drive me insane. I don't know what it is about that square area out there, but we couldn't talk to anybody. Now, that was, again, over 7-8 years ago. But I would love to come back to Lafayette, and if I could be on Monday Night Raw and maybe play the little thing that you played that I said last Monday that kind of refreshed people's memories a little bit. I can pull heel Coach out of the bag, no problem.
Well, and then we could kind of pull the ESPN and wrestling worlds together. I just look. I think Vince would say, "Hey, there's money to be made there. Let's do it." Jonathan Coachman, our guest. Give him a follow on Twitter at the Coach ESPN. What's the most painful thing that ever happened to you in a wrestling ring?
Well, I'm very proud of all the different bumps I took and all the different things that I was able to do physically. When they approached me about doing more than just being an announcer, I didn't hesitate. But the very first night that it was SummerSlam in 2003 in Phoenix, and I was part of Eric Bischoff was fighting Shane McMahon, Vince's son, and I was to blast Shane with 4 chair shots when he came out of the ring. And I was nervous because if you miss and it's Vince's son, then your career can be very short.
Sure.
If you know what I'm saying. The chair shots were perfect, and it felt so good. And I can understand why the guys love doing it. But then here comes Stone Cold Steve Austin to the rescue of Shane McMahon, and he gave me a kidney shot. He kicked me in the back in the kidneys.
Ooh.
And I swear to God, Scott, that for about 15 or 20 seconds, I could not breathe. I thought I was going to die, in all honesty. I'm not kidding around. And once the breath came back, I had a couple of cracked ribs, and so I didn't do anything physical for a little bit. But that was by far the most painful thing that I ever felt. And it was really the first night that I ever did anything majorly on the physical side. And after that, I went through tables. I took chair shots. Goldberg spiked me, and Batista bombed me, and Undertaker gave me the tombstone pile driver. I took all of it. But nothing was more painful than that very first night.
Great stuff from Jonathan Coachman. A look inside the ring. Stone Cold's kick to the kidney. Ouch. Man. I listen to his podcast here and there. I just think it's hilarious, but he'll occasionally tell old stories about some bumps in the ring. Coach is our guest. All right, some listeners, of course, chimed in via Twitter and wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Now, this is one that I'm sure you got. Jan Cajun just asked, Coach, would you like to come to a spring crawfish boil in Lafayette? We've got a spot for you and your family.
Yeah, just make sure we have a couple of seats there. Make sure I have a bib, and I'm ready to go.
All right.
I'm ready to go. People don't understand. I come from a town of 12,000 people. In my life, I don't care how the perception of how far I've come. Believe me, I get down and dirty with the best of them, and I have not changed 1 second since I came from McPherson, Kansas. So you invite me to something, whether it's a river festival, a crawfish feed, a pancake feed on Saturday morning at the VFW, I'm there and I'm having fun.
This one's a little weird, but he just insisted that I ask you. At Am I Still Cool asked, would you rather have a dirty waffle mop wiped on your face or eat a few bites of wet cat food? That's just weird, but I had to ask.
Well, that's just weird, and I think that speaks to what I've been dealing with all week.
Here's another one. What's better / worse? Getting stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin or receiving the people's elbow from The Rock?
The stunner is much worse because the people's elbow, you just lay there, you can't screw it up. But I've seen some horrendous stunners taken by certain people who just don't know what they're doing. I probably got stunned 10 or 15 times over the years. Some were good, some were bad, but I've seen some horrendous ones. So I would say if you take it wrong, you can hurt your knees, you can hurt your head, you can hurt a lot of things. Rock never hurt anybody with the people's elbow.
I would say of all the 15 stunners you took, they were probably all better than the one Linda McMahon tried to take. That one was awful. She just fell down. I mean, she's an older woman. She's not Jonathan Coachman, but that one, oof, I'll never forget it. I mean, she sold it afterwards, but she just kind of, I guess, just fell forward and stone cold drank a couple of colds.
I can tell you that a lot of people have compared me to an old lady over the years, so that comparison isn't so far off.
Maybe some folks down here in Lafayette. Jonathan Coachman has been our guest. Coach, you're a great sport. I respect and appreciate that you came on to discuss your comments, and between the food, festival, sports, and everything else we have to offer, I know Lafayette would love to host you. And I know now you're going to kind of be like an unofficial, maybe an official UL fan through these Women's College World Series, maybe the baseball regionals, depending on how far the men go.
Well, Scott, I can tell you this, that I talked about you guys on my radio show on Sunday. I've mentioned it on SportsCenter a couple times this week. So if nothing else, I have been guilted into becoming a Cajuns fan, which I'm more than happy to do. And hopefully both teams can have a long road in their respective playoffs and World Series and stuff. But certainly, as I said before, I'm excited for you guys, and there was never any ill will intended from my end. And hopefully I can come down one day and maybe make it some fun and maybe raise a little money for charity or something. And put all this behind us. I hope so.
Sounds fantastic, Coach. I appreciate the time. To your wife and kids, give them our best from down here in Lafayette, and hopefully we can bring you on the show sometime again in the future. Unless I get to manage you on Raw for like a special one night comeback.
Well, you have my number anytime you want to chat. Just give me a call.
Sounds good, Coach. Thanks a lot.
You bet.